George Paton and Sean Payton strike again, and they get away with highway robbery for your Denver Broncos, turning last year's 7th-round pick into a future 7th-round draft pick and a 4th-round draft pick. We are breaking it all down. What this means for Pat Bryant, Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, what Sean Payton has done with late-round draft picks just throughout his history, and we're going to take a look at some of Devaughn Vele's best catches last season, who it means is going to be catching those balls this year from Bo Nix. If you're new to the channel, I'm a diehard Denver Broncos fan on a last second emergency podcast. Love it. I was mowing my lawn and my video had just posted. I'm like, oh, what? But here we go. We're diving in here. So Denver Broncos take last year's 7th-round pick. He was one of Bo Nix's favorite targets. I think if he didn't have those broken ribs early in the season, he would have even outproduced what he did. But the fact of the matter is, he's going to be turning 28 years old in this season, and he's only a sophomore. He was a player who, he's a Mormon. He took a couple years off to go on a mission, a really cool dude. But I think the Denver Broncos got an absolute haul getting him, getting this type of return for him. And I'm going to talk about why it's really just a great thing, because there were a lot of folks who said that our receiver room was way too packed. We know last year it was Devaughn Vele over Tim Patrick, an absolute fan favorite starting the season. Tim Patrick was cut from the team, signed with the Detroit Lions because Sean Payton saw a lot in Devaughn Vele. Benny Fowler points out the fact that coaches way different where your player was acquired differently, right? And so he talked about how getting a guy in the 7th round or an undrafted guy, they have to ball out of control when you have a guy like a Pat Bryant who you got earlier in the draft in the 3rd round, that he's going to have more leeway, more leash to play with. But what he says is this shows what a deep wide receiver room the Denver Broncos have. So when Sean Payton told that to Kay Adams, said, no, I'm not going to make a run at Amari Cooper or Keenan Allen. I'm not going to try to go get Deebo Samuel, who wants to play with us, or any of these guys. I trust our wide receiver room. He trusts it so much that he sent away Bo Nix's 2nd favorite target last season. But I think this is a great deal that you look at. I love this. George Paton absolutely strikes again. Benjamin Albright has been on the Devaughn Vele train for longer than anyone I remember, hate him or love him. And even for him, a 4th and a 7th round pick is a very rich return for him. We're going to take a look here that if you look what they're getting more for Devaughn Vele than we got for Jerry Jeudy. That is absolutely wild. And if you look across the NFL, the Chiefs just sent away Sky Moore to the 49ers, who really needed a wide receiver, and all they got was a 6th, 7th round pick swap, even though Sky Moore was a 2nd round draft pick just a few years ago and is much younger than Devaughn Vele. And then you look here, same guy, Michi, another 2nd round draft pick, that you're just getting a 6th round in return for him. I think the Broncos cleaned up on this deal, absolutely cleaned up on this deal. And I think it's the fact that he has been a little bit hampered going into the preseason. Obviously, we didn't see him at full strength. We're going to look at him at full strength and what it means. But I think the other important thing to remember here is that looking at this, the Saints are going to be one of the worst teams in football. No one even knows who their quarterback is going to be. So there's a very real chance that this ends up being the very first pick of the 1st round, or 2nd, maybe 3rd pick of that round. And again, they're not going to just bounce back. And so if you take a look at the how much the point value associated with different points, if we end up being that's the first pick of next year's 4th round, that's going to be worth 96 points. And then if you look at the first pick of the 7th round, that's 5 points. So basically you are getting the equivalent of a 3rd round draft pick for a guy that you got in the 7th round that a lot of people thought was on the roster bubble. So what have Sean Payton and George Paton done with the a 4th round and beyond? They have absolutely cleaned up, and it's not a homer take because this wasn't even when they were with the Denver Broncos necessarily. They have absolutely cleaned up in late rounds. You look at, they got George Paton when he was with the Vikings. He got Stephon Diggs, who's been to the Pro Bowl 4 times in the 5th round. He got Everson Griffin, who made a Pro Bowl and I believe an All-Pro team as well. Also in the 4th round, you look here, the list goes on and on. Jonathan Cooper, who just got the bag and had 10.5 sacks last season. We got him in the 7th round, and the list just goes on and on. Sean Payton does the exact same thing. This is when they are cooking. Give them as many picks, as many at-bats and swings at the ball as they can, and a lot of those are going over the fence. You look here, Marques Colston, who Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champ, they got him in the 7th round. You look at Jair Evans, 4th round pick, an elite player who made 6 different Pro Bowls, and you're just looking at the number of games these guys are starting. This is when Sean Payton and George Paton really start to pull away from the pack. When you give them late round draft picks, watch out, they're going to clean up. So when I look at what this means and like who won and who lost, all of that kind of stuff, I think the Broncos won when it comes to what they got in return. But I think that the guys who really are winning in this, this is wins for Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims, and obviously Pat Bryant. I think Sean Payton was blown away with their production. Obviously, he was blown away with Courtland Sutton because we gave him the bag. And I think in some ways that Devaughn Vele, and even drafting him in the first place, knowing that he's basically the exact same size and stature of Courtland Sutton. He was Courtland Sutton insurance because when Sean Payton took the helm and drafted Devaughn Vele, we didn't have a long-term deal worked out with Sutton. And remember, he threatened holdouts because there was not this whole regime and this positive culture that we had. Once we locked down, Courtland Sutton for the long term, Devaughn Vele is barely 2 years younger than Courtland Sutton and doesn't have the resume that he does. And so, and then you add in the addition of Evan Engram, who's essentially going to be a tight end who is a wide receiver this year. Bo Nix has so many targets to throw to that we're not worried about Devaughn Vele. This isn't even talking about like Trent Sherfield has been popping off. Like our wide receiver room went from being a point of emphasis to so deep that we can send guys off. And obviously the rest of the league values our receivers, giving up a 4th and a 7th round pick for him. I think that's just phenomenal. Mike Kliss says this is evidence that our team has improved so much that this one that we all were like slamming the table and in the draft, we're like, hey, do we need to draft a receiver early in the first round? Should we use our first round draft pick on a wide receiver? And this is showing you, hey, the rest of the league values our receiver room more than we do internally, and that we need to stop panicking. And then what Sean Payton said the other day about how he values wide receivers, and he doesn't look at it as wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3. He looks at it as what is the defense giving me and who is the perfect receiver for that. We have the big-bodied go up and get that ball, that jump ball guy in Courtland Sutton. And then the other roles Devaughn Vele played as like a slot receiver. That is absolutely Pat Bryant on day one. And we've seen that all in training camp. And then we got to see that this week in the preseason game. So I'm absolutely thrilled with this. I cannot wait to see what George Paton does with these picks. Curious in Broncos country, how is this laying in with you? In 1 second, we're going to take a look at some of Devaughn Vele highlights from this year, who I think is going to be catching those types of balls this year with the Broncos. But I'm curious, how are you feeling about this return? Are you pumping the brakes? I've seen some comments on my last video that people are like, I'm sad we don't have depth at wide receiver. Man, I still think we have depth. And there was a lot of games last season where the Broncos didn't dress enough wide receivers. When I'm naming off these dudes, there was going to be like times where Devaughn Vele was on this team still and didn't get a jersey to play because he wasn't activated for that game. So to get that haul for him, I think is an absolute steal. Henry Chisholm of DNVR pointed out some really interesting things that if you look at the subtraction now of Lil Jordan Humphreys going and Devaughn Vele going, you're looking at Devaughn Vele, who was in on 41% of the snaps last season. And if you take out the games he was injured for, that skyrockets up even more. And Lil Jordan Humphreys for 50% of snaps, that is a lot of snaps to go around. So how do we now change our disbursement of who's getting snaps? I think Evan Engram being in there for sure is going to be getting a lot of targets and a lot of snaps. And then I agree, Pat Bryant's going to get 30%. I think Sherfield for sure, the addition of him on special teams, but then what we saw at him as wideout. And then I'm really hoping that we continue to see the development of Marvin Mims as a receiver. He is more than just a punt returner. Absolutely. So let's take a look here at a couple Devaughn Vele highlights from last season and who's getting those. One of the differences, even though he is a big-bodied receiver, he does have a little bit more yards after catch ability than I see with a Courtland Sutton, because Courtland, I love him to death. I always feel like he's going to the ground when he catches the ball for some reason. And Devaughn Vele was able to catch behind the sticks and turn it into a decent game. Absolutely loved seeing that here. This was part of that comeback that the Broncos did against the Chargers. To me, both of these are examples, and almost you can pull the highlight exactly from Pat Bryant's time at Illinois and be like, oh, that's exactly what Pat Bryant did against Rutgers, right? And so I think these two plays in particular are examples of you put Pat Bryant in on those and you're going to have the exact same result, maybe even better because he's a better route runner. These like little screen passes that he caught behind the line of scrimmage, I think that is a Marvin Mims or a Troy Franklin is the one who pops to mind. And just seeing like long stride dude, Troy Franklin is no small guy either. He's not quite as big as Vele. this type of end zone, red zone type target right here, I think that's an Evan Engram one. So this is not a thing where we need to be pumping the brakes and being worried about it, because I think the Broncos have thought ahead of all this, and we're wondering, is he going to be on the bubble of making this roster? Now you don't have to worry about that, and instead you got a ton of picks. So not the video I planned for tonight. I actually made a very good video, I think. You got to let me know. Please go watch that too. I know the algorithm sometimes gets messed up when you drop 2 in a day. Don't let that happen. Watch the other one too. Broncos country. We just got a 4th and a 7th, and Bo Nix is good. We got so much to believe in. Ooh, ball don't lie.